Welcome to Daily 5 for Wednesday, December 5th, 2024. I came across an article over on Ars Technica that is titled, "People Will Share Misinformation That Sparks Moral Outrage." And it details a study at Northwestern University, I think, I know it's Northwestern, I just don't know if it's called Northwestern or Northwestern University. My assumption is Northwestern University. Anyway, I'll link the article so that you can read it for yourself. And the details of the study found that, unsurprisingly, that when people react viscerally with anger and disgust to a news item, that they are less likely to actually read it than to simply reshare it so that others will agree with and validate their anger and disgust. Now, this is not really a surprise. This study is aimed what seems like primarily at social media, but the reality is that if you've been alive for a while, you know that this is not anything new. This is, in fact, just the newest iteration of something that's been around for a long time. There's a saying, if it bleeds, it leads, typically attributed to newspapers. I don't know where the genesis of that quote actually is. I found differing opinions on it. But it is the reality that this is something that has been done in mass media, particularly in the news, but in different ways for a very long time. When I was younger, one of the things that I would count on if I went into a supermarket with my parents was that at the checkout stand, I don't know if it's still there anymore, I don't remember seeing it for quite a while, there would be a very raggedy newspaper type of magazine called the National Enquirer. And the National Enquirer would have stories that were ludicrous in their nature. Famously, the Bat Boy, or some celebrity who's pregnant with twins, even though the celebrity is probably 85 and obviously is not pregnant. Doctored photos to make people look awful because they're on drugs or they're about to die or whatever. And, anybody with any common sense would look at that and know that it was obviously made up, but it worked. People would pick it up. I saw it all the time. People would pick, and I did it myself because I was just curious what was inside this thing. And you look at it, not because it is a nuanced, thoughtful examination of pregnancy in later years, but because it said that somebody was pregnant with twins, even though she was 80 years old. And even though you knew it was nonsense, you would still look at it. And it works. And it worked then, it works now. If you watch news programs, when they were still on a lot, often the most salacious or outrageous story will lead off the broadcast, and later on you will get to what are typically regarded as more boring or more involved stories, because most people don't react to nuance and fact because they perceive those or regard them as cold and boring. What they want is the juicy detail, the thing that they can quickly kind of write up in a short amount of words and send to somebody or repost somewhere or whatever. And so, like I said, this study should not surprise anybody who's been paying attention. It's nice to have that perception validated, to know that, in fact, that this is something that you can prove with actual study and actual analysis of what's going on. But the reality is that most of us who look at the way that media works and do more than a cursory examination of the knowledge and the messaging that is sent our way, if you really think about this stuff and examine it, then this should be very obvious that it is not a new phenomenon. So I'm not surprised by anything in here. Again, I'm glad the study was done. I think it is important for this message to get out so that people understand it. Do I think it will have any material impact, that it will actually make people think a little bit more? Probably not, because anybody who would be so inclined to examine how they're sharing things and what they're doing would not need this study to know that they should be examining how they're sharing things and why they're doing it. So this feels more like a way for people to say, yep, I was right, who already knew they were right, than anything else. But regardless, it is important to have facts and analysis back up some of the perceptions that people have. So it's good to do studies like this. But again, anybody who's been paying even the barest attention to the way that the media has functioned for quite a while now will have already seen that this is how things work, and will already be, to some degree, filtering out anything they see as not necessarily being true just because a lot of people are sharing it and saying it. In fact, that's a very good policy. Whenever you see something getting traction, go look up separately from all of that noise whether there's anything behind what's being spread around and one of the messages that are being reposted. That's just a generally good approach to anything that you see online anyway. So while this study is certainly nice and does back up that that's a good approach, again, if you think even a little bit about the way that media is presented to you, then this study is a nice thing to have, but it certainly wasn't anything that you'd actually need to have been told. Later.